Hi, my name is Oscar and I'm a scientist. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the Eagle Act of 2022. People have been really talking about it across YouTube. And today we're going to see what is the current status of the bill and how it would affect the green card per country quotas. Will it eliminate the backlog for India, for example? Let's jump into it and learn more about it. Let's go. The Eagle Act that many are have been talking about as something that is going to be passed very soon or it has been passed. Don't get caught by those catchy YouTube titles, those clickbaits. The Eagle Act has died effectively this week in Congress. There was a session in which this bill was put to a vote, and actually they couldn't even get it to the floor for a vote. There was only a debate about it, and they couldn't even have a vote. So effectively, 2022 session is finished. There's no more time, so this bill is going to die. We're going to talk about what this bill is and what it included, because it will come back. I'm sure of that in the next year or in the coming years. So Eagle Act. Eagle is an acronym. They really like to give these short titles to legislation in the US. So EAGLE stands for Equal Access to Green Cards for Legal Employment Act of 2022, and this is the code that the bill had in the US Congress. As you know, in the US, as in other countries, the system works in this way. A bill has to be introduced in Congress or Senate. Both chambers have to agree to the legislation. It has to pass. In the US, it has to pass in the same version in both chambers, and then it goes to the president and is signed into law, and then when it becomes law, then it's effective. This Eagle Act is a bill. It has not even passed in even one of the chambers. All right, so this legislation actually is not even specific for 2022. It has been introduced for many years without success. It has some bipartisan support, which is important to note. It's not only a Democratic or only a Republican bill. It's primarily supported by Democrats, but it's also supported by some Republicans. Multiple bills in previous years did not become law. The same happened with this 2022 one. It effectively died in the US House without a vote on December 14th. All right, there was a debate. We're going to see a little bit of what happened, but no vote, and the year is over. So they will have to start all over again. What it would do is, and I only highlight the main things here, I provide a link that I will leave also in the description below, where you can go and actually read the full bill if you would like to do that. But I highlight here what it would do to employment-based green cards and family-based green cards. For employment-based green cards, what it would do is it would remove the per-country cap. Currently, as you know, the US system works in this way. There are a certain number of green cards that can be granted each year, and out of that number, only 7% can go to a specific country. What that caused over the years is that because there's more population in certain countries than in others, and more applicants in some countries than in others, then that cap that is the same for all countries creates a backlog for certain nations. For example, India is the one that is suffering this system the most. So what this bill wanted to do is to remove those caps so that could be corrected. And because they had to negotiate this across the aisle and get to a more palatable solution, they included a transition period of 9 years where there would be a reserve cap for those other countries that are not India or China. I call them here the quote-unquote minority countries. So they would have a guaranteed quota for 9 years that would be reducing over that transition period until on the 10th year there would be no caps whatsoever. All right, what that would do effectively is to redistribute those backlogs that now we see in India and China applicants to all the countries. And it would allow also to file for a green card if you have been waiting for 2 years or more in the backlog. So that would not give you a green card automatically after 2 years, but it would allow you to file for it, and my guess is that then you could do employment authorization cards and travel cards as well. So it would provide a way of staying in the US and not get caught up by this huge backlog system without any guarantee of being able to stay in the country. For family-based green cards, it would increase the country caps from 7 to 15%. So it would make the system a little bit less strict to certain countries. Again, the link I will leave here so you can read the bill by yourself. All right, so I have a few videos and touches here and there. First, we're going to see the summary of the bill that this representative from California that led the effort presented in the US Congress this week.
Today, the House is considering H.R. 3648, the EAGLE Act, a bipartisan bill that raises the per-country caps on family-sponsored immigrant visas and phases out the per-country caps on employment-based immigrant visas. The bill also includes significant improvements to the H-1B visa program that adds protections for U.S. workers. I just want to talk a little bit about what we're doing here. My colleague from California said, we're talking about picking winners and losers. In 1965, the Congress did pick winners and losers when they designed this structure. The winners were Western Europe, and the losers were everyone else. Now, that system, although not, I'm sure, intended to be called racist, did advantage people from Western Europe to the disadvantage of the rest of the world, and we're still working on that system today. I think it's time to change that system. It's time to move to merit, not to race, not to the country you were born in. I'm not accusing any critics of this bill. I'm not talking about their motivation, but the fact is, if we don't change this system, we're supporting something that we did in 1965 that really has an effect of having race play a role in who gets a visa.
In this video, we could see how the main motivation here for this bill is to change the system in a way that, as I said earlier, that it will remove that origin of the applicants as one of the main restrictions to enter the system, and it would put the focus on merit according to the person that is leading this legislative effort. And we will see later what is the argument against this. It's really interesting to see how what she's talking about is that the system has not only hurt people from India or China, but the way it was configured, it also really benefited applicants from Western Europe, from where I'm from, because we come from countries that are small, that are hardly going to get to those quotas that were imposed. So in a way, the system maybe was created with that in mind. And here is an interesting graph that I saw on Twitter, so credit to this user that posted it. I don't really know, it seems that it comes from some sort of publication, but I couldn't find any reference for it. But here we see numbers for EB2 and EB3 green card applicants, and they are breaking down by country. In purple we see China, in gray we see India, and then others. Out of the sponsored applicants, and again, this doesn't really apply for EB2 and NIW specifically because NIW you can self-sponsor, but to those categories, which are, I believe, the majority, where an employer sponsors your green card, we can see that the majority of the sponsored green cards have been Indian, is the gray area here. However, because of the quota system, the majority of the people that get the green card at the end are the others, the countries that are not India or China. And here we can see that the backlog, the people waiting in line, are really pretty much all Indian and a little bit also Chinese, but mostly Indian. And that's what we see in the visa bulletins. This is a graphic explanation of the visa bulletin. In the visa bulletin we see dates and we see how there's so much wait time for India and China, and this is why, because of this cap imposed on the green cards, they get stuck in that cycle. And this is what would happen if the Eagle Act would be enacted, if it had passed and it was signed into law and then it was actually used. We see the future years with these 9 years here, this would be the transition period in which there's a gradual change towards the new system without caps. We can see now India is this orange, this darker orange, and China is the lighter orange, and then the blue is others. We see that right now, currently most of the green cards are given to the other countries. However, during those 9 years, the other countries would get less and less green cards, and India would start absorbing most of the green cards available more and more throughout that transition. And then at the end of the transition in 2034, they would pretty much get all the green cards because the system would prioritize that backlog to be cleaned out, and that backlog is mostly Indian people. And then the system would work its way back to a more a scenario that represents more the reality of percentage applicants over the total applicant pool. So this graph is one of the main reasons why a lot of people don't want this bill to get passed, because right now the system really benefits us, the people that are not from India or China, and people fear that after this Eagle Act is passed, then for many years those that have been now benefited by this system will get hurt. However, the other way of seeing it is the system may be a little bit more fair because the system has hurt disproportionately those applicants from India. The White House position on this bill was of support. Actually, President Biden came out to really call for action and call for approval of this law. This is a statement from December 6th, so really recent. And what it says is, as currently written, this bill would take effect over a 9-year transition period to ensure that no countries are excluded from receiving visas. During the transition period, visas would also be set aside for nurses and physical therapists to address urgent needs in the healthcare industry and for employment-based immigrants and their family members who are not currently in the US. This is important because another criticism to this bill is that it benefits the IT industry and that the Amazons and Googles and so on, they're really pushing for this type of legislation because they have a lot of employees from India that are currently on visas like the H-1B visa, and they really want to get those people regularized. They want to get them under a resident status in the US. So here they're saying, well, we are going to protect also other types of jobs, so we don't hurt either American employees or certain healthcare professionals that may have a tough time to get a green card if all these people now get into the system. Now we're going to see the opposite point of view. Here is a commentator from a TV program. She is an academic actually, and she really opposes this legislation, citing diversity reasons. So I think it's always interesting to see both sides.
And if this Eagle Act were to pass, instead, what would happen is that the job based green cards would go mostly to these visa workers who were brought in as cheap labor and who are just ordinary tech workers working for less. And because they all come from mainly one country, India, with a few others from China, if the per country caps were lifted, then all of these talented individuals and uniquely qualified people that, let's say a big corporation wants to bring over from from Germany or from an African country or from somewhere in South America, they would not be able to do it because the visa workers waiting for green cards who came as temporary workers have clogged up the system. And that's no way to run, a highly skilled green card program. And that's why the Immigration Lawyers Association has also come out against this bill. And the Congressional Black Caucus is against it because it would stifle opportunities for talented people to come from African or Caribbean nations that bring diversity to our immigration flow. So that's one of the reasons that this is really not a good idea and not what Congress intended when it created the per country caps.
So what this person is saying in this, I have to say, this very conservative right-wing TV channel is that the new system would hurt, as I said, or would not hurt, but would put under the same circumstances that now India is, all these other countries like Europe, Africa, etc. And she's saying that it would be hurting diversity in the sense that suddenly all or almost all the green cards would go to Indian nationals, and all the US immigration system would be basically putting Indians through the system while other countries don't provide any immigration to the US. Now, you may be in agreement with what this person says or not. What it is true is what she mentions, that the Black Caucus leaders in Congress opposed this bill for the reasons she gave, because they see it as a threat to black immigration into the US, and also some immigration attorney associations have opposed this bill as well. So that is factual. And this is another view opposed to the Eagle Act. This person tweeted, I think this person, is an immigration lawyer. This is why Chinese opposes the Eagle Act. The Eagle Act advocates and says no one now waiting will be affected. But what they are saying is backlog Chinese would lose 1/3 of the green cards they are getting now. In 2022, 36,000 green cards based on employment for people born in China. During the first year of Eagle, only 24,000. So here is where the different interests start colliding, and of course each group has their own interests, and this is very clear when we see this type of statements. Now, what is also important to see is that this has caused some political tensions, because the other day they debated this bill in the US Congress, in the House, but the leader of the House, Nancy Pelosi, didn't put this bill to a vote, perhaps because they were going to lose the vote, and the person that was leading the efforts, this representative for California, actually wrote a letter and published a letter complaining to her leader, her Democratic leader, about what happened the other day. Another interesting thing that I saw is this representative, I believe also from California, not from Washington. She is one of the few representatives that started in the US as an immigrant under an H visa, and then eventually got a green card and became a citizen. So she gave a very sentimental speech about what this bill meant for her.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of the Eagle Act. I believe I may be the only one or one of very few members of Congress who has actually been on an H-1B visa back when processing times to transition to a green card weren't nearly as bad as they are today. And it still took me 17 years and a multitude of visas to become a U.S. citizen. Today, an estimated 1.6 million people in the family backlog and 200,000 in the employment backlog will die in some cases before they receive green cards because of an arcane system that puts a 7% per country limit on employment and family-sponsored green cards. Many of the people that are stuck in this backlog are Asian immigrants, people who were denied the right to become U.S. citizens for most of U.S. history, from 1790 to 1952, through the Chinese Exclusion Act and the Supreme Court's 1923 decision barring Indians from becoming naturalized U.S. citizens. Anti-Asian policies have informed these future anti-immigrant efforts. And as the first South Asian American woman elected to the House, I am very aware that Congress did not repeal that Supreme Court decision until 1946. The employment and family immigration process, established in 1965, provided the first meaningful ways for Asian immigrants to come to the United States. And it remains the main method of entry for Asian immigrants because many Asian immigrants cannot access other pathways such as asylum or refugee status or diversity visas. However, because of the per-country caps, there are lengthy backlogs to secure permanent status. Those backlogs can last for decades or even lifetimes. Someone from India or Mexico currently experiences a 200-year wait to secure a green card, while nationals of other countries wait as little as 2 years or less. The EAGLE Act would simply ensure fairness by moving to a first-come, first-served system that would no longer discriminate by country of birth. And moreover, thanks to the bill's 9-year transition period beginning in October of 2024, it would not harm anyone that is currently in the backlog. The truth, Mr. Speaker, is that our immigration system is deeply broken, and it needs reform on every level. This is something that I dedicated 2 decades of my life to before coming to Congress.
So you can see how he brings up good points. Again, talking about how the U.S. law has discriminated Asians in the past, and to the point that Indians, for example, were prohibited from getting citizenship for many, many years, and the current system also continues to hurt them. So what do you think? Do you support the EAGLE Act and would like to redistribute those backlogs to all the applicants? Do you think this per country cap quotas is fair and should still exist to guarantee some diversity in the immigration inflows to the US? Do you think this bill will come back once again, as it has come back for many years, and we will hear again in 2023? Let me know in the comments below. The conclusions I have is that the EAGLE Act did not get a vote and failed to be passed once again in 2022, but I expect that we will hear again in 2023 probably, or maybe later. And again, if you are strongly for or against it and you live in the US, you can talk with your representative and push them to vote one way or another. But I would like to hear your thoughts, even if you are not in the US, if you are abroad, if you are a prospective applicant. What do you think? Are you from India? Are you from abroad? I want to hear what you believe that is a fair system for the US to implement in the coming years. So with that, I'll leave you with my last few seconds talking about my website, eb2naw.info, where if you are interested in applying by yourself, you can go read a lot of information about this category. Of course, you can follow this YouTube channel, subscribe and like my videos, share them. But if you go to my website, you can download a real and successful I-140 petition so you can work on your own. And I continuously add more material, and I'm working on new material as well that I will announce very soon. And I will see you in the next video. And as usual, thank you so much for watching and for supporting this channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.